The autumn wind carried a bitter chill through the small town of Ravenshade, the kind of cold that seeped deep into the bones and stirred old memories from the graves of silence. 16-year-old Elara Hayes stood on the cracked pavement outside the abandoned community hall, her fists clenched so tightly that her nails cut into her palms. Her chest rose and fell with the tremors of fury and grief. They had chosen this night of all nights to do it. They had chosen her father's birthday, the birthday of the man who once wore that old military uniform with pride, the man who gave his blood for a town that now mocked his memory. She could already see the orange glow of fire inside the hall, faint but growing stronger. The laughter reached her ears next, sharp and cruel. She recognized every voice: Blake Morton, the town's golden boy and the leader of the high school's notorious clique, was there. His friends were gathered around him like hyenas circling a kill. They had dragged out her father's uniform, his medals, his old jacket, his cap, and fed it to the flames in the middle of the hall like some twisted bonfire. Elara's throat tightened. That uniform wasn't just fabric, it was a legacy. Her father, Captain Daniel Hayes, had once been the town's pride. He had marched off to war with his head held high, carrying not just his own hopes but the prayers of the people of Ravenshade. He never returned the same. He came back limping, scarred, and carrying stories he could never fully share. Yet, even broken, he carried himself with honor. That uniform had been the one thing he kept carefully folded, the last proof of who he had once been, and now the bullies had decided to destroy it. Elara stepped forward, her boots crunching on the gravel. She pushed the door open, and it groaned as though warning her of what she was about to see. Inside, shadows danced across the graffiti-stained walls lit by the fire pit they had made from stolen wood. The uniform was already half eaten by the flames, the jacket's sleeve twisted in the fire like a desperate hand reaching for help. The laughter cut through her heart like knives. Well, Blake smirked as he turned, his arm draped lazily around the shoulders of another boy. His blonde hair glowed in the firelight, his eyes glinting with arrogance. Look who showed up, the little soldier's daughter. Come to rescue Daddy's rags. His friends erupted in cruel chuckles. One of them, Mason, lifted the old cap her father once wore and dangled it over the flames. Oops, he said mockingly. Almost dropped it. Should I? Or should we let her beg for it first? Elara's jaw tightened. The tears stung at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She stepped closer, the heat of the fire kissing her skin. Every fiber of her being screamed to dive in and pull the uniform out, to save whatever was left, but the bullies blocked her path like vultures guarding a carcass. Why are you doing this? Her voice shook but carried a dangerous edge. This isn't just cloth. That uniform is worth more than all of you combined. My dad fought for this country while you cowards sit here laughing. You think this makes you strong? No, it only shows how weak you are. For a moment, silence fell. Even the crackle of the fire seemed to hush, but then Blake threw his head back and laughed. You hear that? She thinks her loser dad's war costume makes her better than us. He grabbed a stick and shoved at the uniform in the fire, pressing it deeper into the flames. Newsflash, Elara, nobody cares about your father anymore. He's just a broken man who lives in the past. And tonight, we're burning that past to ash. Her vision blurred with rage. Her chest rose and fell faster, now harder. She could hear her father's voice in her head, calm and steady as he once trained her in their backyard. Never let anger control you, Elara. Channel it. Focus it. Make it your strength. Oh, Blake grinned wider, mistaking her silence for defeat. What's wrong? Gonna cry? Or are you finally going to admit what everyone knows? That you're nothing but the daughter of a washed-up soldier. The boys cheered, their laughter echoing off the walls like a cruel chorus. But something shifted in Elara then. The tremble in her body stopped. Her shoulders straightened. Her fists loosened only to curl again with deliberate steadiness. The flames reflected in her eyes, but they no longer looked like a victim's tears. They burned with something stronger, sharper, unshakable. She stepped closer, her presence suddenly commanding enough that even Mason lowered the cap from the flames, confused by the sudden change in her. You think you've won, she said quietly, her voice cutting through the laughter like a blade. But tonight, you've only lit a fire you'll never be able to put out. You mocked my father, you burned his legacy, and you think this will end here. But when this night is over, you will remember it for the rest of your lives, and you will wish you had never touched his uniform. A cold wave swept the hall, as if the wind itself had entered to answer her words. The flames flickered unnaturally, shrinking for a heartbeat before roaring back. The bullies exchanged uneasy glances. Blake forced a laugh, but it lacked its earlier confidence. "What's the matter?" Elara asked, her voice now calm, chilling. "Afraid. You should be." As she spoke, the fire suddenly flared brighter than before, sparks leaping toward the ceiling. A sharp pop echoed, and for a moment it looked as though the flames twisted into the shape of a man standing tall, his chest out, his head raised like a soldier saluting. The bullies froze, their smirks fading as their eyes widened. Blake stumbled a step back. What the hell was that?" Amazon dropped the cap into the dirt, his hand trembling. Did you see?" The fire roared again, louder, hungrier, but it wasn't consuming the hall. Instead, it seemed to be protecting the last fragments of the uniform, shielding them from total destruction. The air turned heavy, almost suffocating, as though another presence had entered the room, one they couldn't see but could feel pressing down on their very bones. Elara didn't move. She stood tall, her father's blood running in her veins, her spirit unshaken. For the first time that night, it wasn't the bullies who held the power. It was her. It was the legacy they tried to destroy but had only awakened. The boys stood frozen, their laughter gone, their faces pale. And Elara whispered, almost like a promise, "You tried to burn him, but you only lit his flame."